Good day everyone and welcome to another vlog for the Exodus 7 to 12K JV project. Now this week I actually got to quite a few things, not as much as I would like to in terms of final footage, but I do get to show you some in-progress stuff and some finished stuff and a new 3D method. So let's get into it. So first things first, let's talk about this new shot over here. Now Moses had just struck the river, and of course the river has turned to blood because that's what God said would happen. So it wasn't Moses turning it into blood, it was God turning it into blood. Just a note. Anyway, so here Pharaoh is giving his response. You know, you can see there by his hand pointing to the magicians. And of course then the magicians would appear and do their thing. So where's that? And that's exactly what I'm going to show you. It is in here. So what we have here is about, say, 12 seconds so far. It's going to be a bit longer. Where the magicians are shown. They've got their little... good grief, I just had the word in my head. No, let's just call them ceramic pots. It's not really a pot, but yeah, but let's just go with it. Anyway, so they're standing there. It's kind of a bit of a standoff, and action starts. So first of all, he needs to demonstrate that it is water and not just some sort of a parlor trick. So of course he pours some of it out. A fair amount, I would say. This is a curve, by the way. It's not a water simulation or a simple mesh or something like that. It's a curve. And don't even ask me how it works because I just did this by leading. I still have to test this and make it repeatable for me to be able to teach you guys how in the world that works. So anyway, he pours it out, and then not all of it, obviously. And of course, then he prepares to throw it into the air so that it stops right there. Oh yeah. No, actually not. It's not just going to stop right there. I just want to see if the sky dome is the problem. No, sky dome is not the problem. Okay. So what the idea is that for the pot to go up, oops, there you go. The pot has to go up and then it has to come down, and this guy has to turn and break it with the stick, you know, because the water had to be struck and they copied Moses. So I didn't want to go the route of using like a basin or something like that. It just, it doesn't have the same oomph to it. So anyway, the goal is for the thing to be thrown up and be struck to pieces by this guy, and the same for this side. So the idea is to copy the reverse of this. No, not the reverse, the exact same thing. But to have him dodge this way and for him to dodge that way. Of course, I haven't finished that yet because I only got this done this week. So I'm going to show you what this looks like in full motion. I'm not entirely happy with the swing and release because it kind of goes to 4 points instead of just going like nice round and up, but at the moment that's the best I can do without, you know, spending a ridiculous amount of time on it. So anyway, just to show you guys what the water will look like approximately. Spent a lot of time yesterday working on that. Now, the water here feels a little bit stiff to me, but the problem is when you use curves, their own UV mapping, and you use this start and end method that the curves have in order to be able to grow and disappear again, like this one does, the UV mapping kind of sticks to that as well. It's not like the UV mapping is static and the breakup and the end just goes through it. No, it sticks to the start and the end, which means that even if it is a solid frame rate, there's this kind of wobble warp kind of feeling to it, which you can see here. There. It's like it stops and then it goes again, stops and goes again. So unfortunately, that's the way the water looks at this point. I did try to work around it with the timing of the textures and stuff, but for some reason it just doesn't want to be consistent. I mean, I even made the pouring out speed stuff absolute vectors, but still it's got this weird kind of pause in the middle. At this point, it's just going to stay this way, honestly. So there was the little something I spoke about earlier with the breakage of the pot. Now, obviously, the water has to be turned to blood, and I wanted to be absolutely clear that it's real. So what I did was I again felt led to go for this splash, like with Moses striking the water, but to also use the particles and to have this thing break up before the particles can hit the ground, but also that the particles have to paint the surface that they're standing on. So what this looks like when you play it back is this. Now, unfortunately, the actual texture doesn't look this good. The actual texture looks like bacteria. Let me show you. There you go. You can see it looks like bacteria. It's like a colony that's forming. Now, the way I make it look like it's a much finer splash is just by using a cloud texture to warp it. You can see it's not super high detail or anything like that, but it warps at a value of 0.05. The catch is that the second you move the camera, it will almost look as if the blood is warping. Without sounding silly, it's not a static feature. That's the best way to put it. It's not a static feature. It's like reflections on a bumpy surface. So for the splash or whatever, or the final splash, I'm going to have to keep the camera static as it splatters, or just not let it be the focus. But splatter, it's gonna have to splatter. So that it's not phony. Now this took roughly let's say about a morning's work to do this. Now this thing doesn't break up in terms of like a particle system, it just breaks up in terms of a texture. All it is a, let me show you. Let me just get the thing. It's just a cloud texture that's been set to constant. I just want to hide the 3D view so it runs fast. Okay. This is all that happens to the texture. Just like that. And you do that by animating the white slider so that it dissolves, just like that. So it's nothing complicated, but it certainly gives a great result. So in essence, what we would be seeing is something like this. Hold on. So this is basically the idea. Boom. Of course, it has to be struck. This is just a little mashup of the taste and the pot itself. Should actually have faded it out instead. Let's fade it out and see what it looks like. It's a little bit better. This is fun. I really like this kind of stuff. It's fun trying to mess with footage like this. Anyway, so moving on to the 3D method. So this is the result from the new method. It's slightly faster than the old one. As you can see, I'm not going to put the mouse over Moses because Moses is standing outside of the screen at the moment. So basically, this method slices up the scene, which gives you extremely sharp results. Just look around his arm and around his head, and the difference between him and Pharaoh in the background and that sort of stuff. It's absolutely massively sharp. The old method isn't as sharp, but still gives you that sense of depth. So this is the new method, and I'm going to show you the old one. And this is, of course, the old one. The new one. Now, this is the old method. It still has that great sense of depth, but it's not nearly as sharp as the new method is. You can also see that because it's a distortion method, it looks like Pharaoh's head is more in the background than his body is, which is kind of not what you're looking for. Now, the reason it does that is because of the ghost reduction feature I added to reduce it, like it says, the ghosting that you would encounter. But unfortunately, without it, it's absolutely unwatchable, basically. So just to compare, this is the old method, and this is the new one. Check out the difference. It's absolutely massive. The difference in quality is huge. And you can see this especially when it comes to extreme depths and smaller objects, like these little poles of the fence around the balcony. It's absolutely massive. Now, it does take extra effort to work with, but it's certainly worth the effort for the result that you get. So I'm going to show you what this looks like as a video. This is what it looks like as a video. Now, obviously, it's set to loop because it's a very short shot. It's like maybe a second at the most, excluding fades. So it's really a great proof of concept, especially when you look around stuff like Moses' jacket over here. I'm putting the cursor in front of him just so that it doesn't mess with the effect itself. But I really like this new method. I don't think it will be perfect for every kind of scene because it has a major ghosting problem. For example, if something isn't only on a single layer, it tends to create a duplicate of it on the layer below it. Let me show you what I mean. There you go. You can see over here, Pharaoh's arm starts to get that flickery effect. You can see a break in the railing over there. There we go. Proper ghosting. Ha ha! This is what happens when you, shall I say, mess too much with it. You can also see his hand is separated from his body. If you close your right eye and you just look at the left channel, you can see that his hand is separated from his body. The shoulder doesn't look right, the railing flickers, all that kind of stuff. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Whereas if you just connect the regular depth map, boom, great result. You can see his beard is a little separated there, and you can see the hand is still a bit of a problem, but it's not nearly the issue it used to be. So it's absolutely a fantastic new method that gives much sharper results. The only catch is that it also requires that the background be fixed, just like in the defocus tutorial. So I want to show you what that looks like. There you go. Ooh, just want to put the glasses down. So this is what you have to do so that when you stack the layers over the background doesn't, number one, interfere with it. Number two, doesn't create extra ghosting. And finally, produces a very clear area where the layers have been shifted so that you don't get all manner of artifacts and ghosting that screams in your eyes. For example, let's say I turn this off completely. Let's say there's no fixing it. Okay. this is what happens. See, this is now with the straight up depth map. You can see that his hair ghosts a little bit over there, and you can see these poles are seemingly behind and in front of Farah at the exact same time. It looks like there's two fences. You can see it over here with these little poles as well, and you can see it in the tree. You can also see that he ghosts around the edge over here. So let's up the strength so I can just make a bigger point out of it. Let's make the depth 1 and 3D space zip. There we go. Now you can see what happens if with the ghosting. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Now the difference between this and fixing the background. World of difference. Absolutely huge difference. So yeah, that's a new 3D method. I'm going to try to stick with this method for future conversions, but if, of course, the scene doesn't work, I always have the fallback of the other method that pretty much can handle any scene thrown at it with a fair level of quality. But I have to say, I love the sharpness of this method. I mean, just look at Farah. You can see he's loose from the background. It's just absolutely fantastic. And of course, the 3D space is also much more controllable. You can see that it's completely stand out now. It's indented. And of course, you can adjust the depth difference between objects. You can up it even further. And of course, the more you up it, the more ghosting issues you might get. But, you know, the safer values are about 1.5 and so on. So that's what I'll be sticking with. And that's it for this week. Have a great one, and God bless you.